The biggest question coming out of this game, and it's what's on the thumbnail for the show. It's what's on everyone's mind. Sharon Moore was asked about it. Alex Orji himself was asked about it. 7 passes or 7 completions for in 12 attempts, 32 yards. You run the ball 46 times in a game. Is it sustainable? And right now, I think it's impossible to say because, when you look back at the Washington game in 2021, I remember one of the biggest takeaways out of that was, it was nice to see the run game, but that's not what it's going to, you can't play like that when it's time to beat Ohio State. And same deal with the Penn State game last year. I don't know what this looks like moving forward because I think what you have at quarterback is so much less talented than what you've had in the past, just in terms of throwing the football, the threat of throwing the football. I've said this. I think the Alex Orji experiment can be as successful as they are willing to get weird with it. And at times we saw that on Saturday. Now, third quarter, things kind of fall off. You have to kind of find it late on that last drive. But where does this offense go from here? I think is the question of the night. And I'd love to get your guys' take on it.
That's a great question. And if you want to be Iowa and you're going to be able to compete with the teams on the schedule and teams like Minnesota and Michigan State and maybe Indiana and Illinois, those are much improved football teams. You're not going to beat Ohio, or Oregon or Ohio State, in my opinion, like this. You have to have some threat of a pass or you're going to get eaten alive, at least a threat of a pass, right? And that was one thing that we saw from J.J. McCarthy, for example, at Penn State. Everybody talks about the 32 runs in a row, but there were a couple times they caught them with their ears pinned back on third down, trying to get to the quarterback, and they hit them with a quick little running play and sprung them because they were too aggressive. I don't think they're going to be overly aggressive on third down and long against this Michigan line, and frankly, I don't think they have to be because pass protection has just not been good enough, whether it's been Davis Warren or whether it's been Alex Orji. I will say, I'll go so far as to say that if pass protection had been better, Davis Warren might still have been in there. He wouldn't. The interceptions were totally on him, no matter what anybody else says. Donovan Edwards said, "Hey, it was my missed protection that caused him to throw that one against the first one against the pick six against Arkansas State or whatever it was." And he said, and no, you just can't make that throw. So it was completely on Davis Warren, but that kid was running for his life. Evan Link has not been getting the job done at right tackle, and the protection has been leaky. I asked Sharon Moore today what he thought about Pro Football Focus and their rankings and their ratings, and he laughed. He said, "I don't have time to look at that." And you could kind of sense what he thought about it, and that maybe they're grading out a little bit better on their system. But when it comes to tackles, as somebody on the message board said today, it's pretty clear you either get beat or you don't, right? And they're getting beat way too much. So to me, this is going to be everybody's like, "Oh, they got to do more RPOs and they got to do this and they got to do that." I think they'd be doing that, guys, if they could. And if they had faith that it would work. So something's not there, and they are extremely, extremely limited with Alex Orji under center. They cannot win 10 games playing like this, period.
Yeah, just great and glorious victory, on Saturday. And this program just continues to make plays when they have to, right? In these big, tight games, big moments, Kalel Mullings with the run. But it kind of played out exactly how they needed it to for them to win this game too. Like, you can't really play this style of football if you don't get up early 14-0 like they did and then be able to kind of cling to your lead. You get a defensive score from Will Johnson, which was an incredible play as well, but the offense didn't really do anything, actually didn't do anything in the second half until Kalel broke that 63-yard run to set them up. It was the first down of the second half. So they need to get more out of the passing game, but they bought themselves some time by getting a marquee victory over the number 11 team in the country, to allow Alex Orji to develop here in the passing game, to get healthier as well with Colston Loveland. I think he would be a huge piece, and this game could have looked a little bit differently if he was in there. We'll see what Marlon Klein's status is coming out of getting hurt at the end of last week's game as well. But it's just huge to get this one to inject some confidence in the entire team, offense, defense, special teams. By the way, part of that script too was Tommy Doman doing an incredible job in the field position game, getting them to start out with some really long fields after having played some shaky football the first 3 weeks outside of his kickoffs. So That was big as well, but they're going to need to improve the offense, here. Maybe you can beat Minnesota like that. You open up as a double-digit favorite there, probably be a favorite at Washington. But then the end of the month, next month, it's going to get tougher. So, but the thing is, they do have some time here, and Alex Orji got through his first start without having to do a whole lot with his arm and still got the win. So if he can improve from here, or if they have to make a change at some point too, then they may have to. But certainly they're going to have to be better from the quarterback position.
Yeah, and I wanted to bring this comment up from Jamion Small. Jamion Small says he still has a Davis Warren fetish. Jamion, we don't judge here. You can have fetishes on anybody or anything anytime. So you keep sticking to your guns there, buddy. And I think this quarterback competition is ongoing. It's clear, though, that Alex Orji deserved his shot. And you can't turn the ball over six times. They can make as many excuses for them as they want to. 2 of the interceptions probably weren't on him. But Jamion, you know what? We might even send you a Davis Warren jersey knowing that you have a fetish for him.
Fair enough. I think, Clayton, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, Michigan's path to win on Saturday was going to be playing complementary football. And it's what we hadn't seen the first few weeks. I mean, they won the field position battle for the most part. Lest we forget, I mean, everyone's talking about Kalel Mulling's heroics. You had 2 of your better players, Donovan Edwards, Kenneth Grant, fumble the football away to the other team. To win, I mean, I come out of this week feeling a lot better about the culture and this team's, you didn't see them pack it in. You didn't see them, they played hard and they have their limitations and they're still working through a lot of things. But the fact that was a 4-quarter football fight that ends with you punching the football in on 4th and 1 for the game. And I'd almost argue for the season, because who knows where this thing goes if you choke away that game on Saturday. I learned a lot about this group this week, just in terms of, I think they're gonna keep playing hard. The defense was much more physical, obviously up front, sort of hammering home, being the dominant force that we thought that they could be. So, in terms of sustainability, yeah, it obviously has to get better. You're not going to win many games, and I say this, but Michigan is 6-0 the last 6 times that it's thrown for less than 100 yards in a game. And that's the most Jim Harbaugh Michigan stat that there could possibly be right now. But yeah, man, listen, these guys need to get better. And it's, I see comments about needing to throw the ball better, needing to get Donovan Edwards more involved in the passing game. It's like the path to doing that right now, it seems just like every 4, 5, 6 yards that they get feels like pulling teeth at the moment outside of the big runs. I mean, this team can't pass protect right now. You have a quarterback who is limited throwing the football versus a guy who can't take care of the football. I just think it's hard to do the things that a lot of Michigan, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out moving forward.
Yeah, no doubt. And hopefully, hopefully it gets better and they get more comfortable asking him to do more things. The thing is that maybe they've, worked on RPOs and maybe he makes bad decisions when he's running it in practice. Don't you think they would be doing more if they thought he could do more, especially in a game like USC, when you've gone 3 and out like 6 or 7 times in a row? You had 7 yards in the second half and no first downs for 24 freaking minutes. So, you know what? To me, and now the blueprint's out there. They made adjustments in the second half. The blueprint is out there. So to sit there and think that you're going to win that way against better teams on the schedule, even some of the teams like Michigan State that have improved, that are well coached. If you saw them play Boston College, their defense is playing a lot better than I thought they would. I'll be honest. Going to Illinois is going to be tough to win if you have an offense like that. So somebody here asked, what do they think? First of all, Jack Tuttle. He's not going to be an option, in my opinion. I asked Sharon Moore today. He said the snaps in practice are going to be like 70, 30, 60, 40 for Sharon Moore, not Sharon Moore, for Alex Orji compared to Davis Warren. And then he said, Warren is still studying. If they need a passer, again, then if they get down by 2 scores, I think it's pretty clear they were still, as Anthony said, or somebody said on the board, they were still running the ball up the gut with two minutes to go. And from the 45-yard line, the 40-yard line, before Kalel Mullings broke his runner, the 30-yard line. And it's unsustainable. That's not going to happen very often. It took one huge run for them to win this game. It would be a much different narrative that we would be discussing today had they somehow not gotten that 4th and 2. And if Kalel Mullings had not broken that 63-yard run. So there's a lot still to be determined. I agree with you 100% too, Anthony. I don't know how good USC is. I don't know how good Michigan is, but I do know that Michigan's got great players on defense, and they played with much more fire on Saturday. If they play with that like that, then that defense can win them some games.
Yeah, and with the offense too, the receivers in the coaching staff have to figure out a way to get them open. You would think with the amount of times Michigan's running the football that, hey, even a pass would be kind of catching the opponent off guard a little bit. But, it just doesn't feel like they have a super high level of talent in the receiving core outside of Colston Loveland. I do like what I've seen from Marlon Klein, but those are tight ends. You kind of need some wideouts to do some things. Samaj Morgan got some yards on some of those screens. I mean, Fred Moore had the crossing route that, looked like it could have gotten a little bit more had he gotten free. And then really the Marlon Klein 10-yard pickup was absolutely massive, leading to the 3rd and short for Kalel to then run for 63. But, they need to get guys open in some better spots. They need to be able to protect if you want to have time to get guys open. So it's not just all on Alex Orji. But on the defense, I mean, what an incredible performance by the defensive line. I mean, that was the vision that we all had coming into the season of what this D-line was going to look like. They had been a little quieter. Teams are getting the ball out pretty quickly in the first couple of weeks, especially Arkansas State last week. They felt like they wanted more production. And they got it against, USC had to make the left tackle change in the middle of the game, looking for answers left and right. Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, how can you contain both of those guys? And then number 0, Josiah Stewart, was all over the field. 8 pressures, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, a pass breakup. He was incredible. And this D-line helped out the back end. Obviously, Will Johnson made the pick 6, which was outstanding. But that's how it has to look, too, for this defense going forward. And they stepped up in the biggest game to date. So, kudos to them.
Let me ask you guys a question while we're here. If it's 13-3, say, heading into the 4th quarter, or 13-6, Michigan's losing, or 16-6, what do you do? Do you stick with Alex Orji? Do you go with Davis Warren?
One-score game. I mean, that's not assuming that the football has been protected and taken care of. Like I can't go to that guy with the 6 interceptions on the resume. And, again, they need someone who can throw the football adequately, but I think it's kind of they talk about the 4 Ps when it comes to surrounding a quarterback. It's play calling, playmakers, protection. Maybe it's just the 3 Ps. I don't know. And they haven't had a whole lot of quality, any of that in the passing game. So to me, I mean, it's, and we haven't talked about this yet. I mean, and I think maybe Clayton actually hit on it. No Colston Loveland into this game. Marlon Klein was hurt. So you're already, down from like the 2 top guys at a pretty big safety valve spot.
Klein was out for like 5 plays, but
right. 5 plays.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we forget, I do think there's a part of them that had Colston Loveland in mind for this game plan on Saturday. Even Sharon says that they thought he might give it a go, and that the doctors decided against it. So I don't know. Like, that's another data point that I'm not sure of. So to me, I mean, right now, Alex Orji is the quarterback until Alex Orji's play loses you a football game, in my opinion. That's, to me, that
even Minnesota.
That's dicey. That's dicey.
Yeah. That's really dicey. Even Minnesota, you can't afford to lose that game. You can't afford to lose any game that's not Oregon or Ohio State at this point. And those are they should all be winnable games, including Washington on the road, a big 24-5 winner over Northwestern. So to me, they've got some tough decisions to make. I'm glad I'm not the coach, because I said in the spring I didn't think they had any options, that they needed to do whatever they could do to go to the portal. I think we're seeing that is absolutely true. And I understand that their hands were tied and they had their backs to the wall in terms of what they could do with the timing. But this quarterback room at Michigan is frankly unacceptable. And that's where I'll leave it.
Yeah.
I would heavily consider going to somebody else in a spot like that, because the turnovers were kind of the downfall of Davis Warren. But if you're down 10 points in the fourth quarter, you got to dial up the risk a little bit anyway, and be able to push the ball downfield a little bit. But it's a hypothetical. What if they're up 21-7 next week? No one's going to be complaining either. So people always like the doom and gloom hypotheticals, but I would definitely think that this is still close. I mean, Davis Warren was the starter the beginning of the year for a reason. He lost the job for a reason. We'll see what Alex Orji does with it. He could run away with it just as easily as Davis Warren could have. But yeah, I would definitely consider in a spot like that making a change. And AB, you make a great point on Colston Loveland, because think of Davis Warren, though. All his production, or at least half of it, was to Colston Loveland. So it's something that we don't have. We haven't seen Alex Orji run the offense with number 18 out there. Okay. So it's kind of an interesting one going forward, once he comes back.
Yeah, now I see what we're dealing with here. Jamyon says, call Al Borges up for how he used Denard Roundtree Gallon scheme. They don't have Denard Roundtree and Gallon. They don't have anything close. And I wouldn't call Al Borges to scheme anything at this point, with all due respect. Al's a good guy, but no. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, and this is why, on one hand, you can sit here and go, oh, well, if this is the reality of their quarterback situation, that's what your top two options are what we've seen from them, then Jaden Davis can't be much worse. And on one hand, I would listen to that from maybe it's time to put a little more on his plate behind the scenes and maybe see if you get him ready for later in the year. On the same token, the fact that we're still having conversations about wide receivers not being able to get separation and an offensive line that can't pass block. I'm sorry, you can't just plug a true freshman into, again, if this is freshman JJ McCarthy, it's a totally different story. But then again, even he's able to be successful early on in his career because you were dominant up front. You could pass block and run block. So this is your football team right now. And it's kind of this scrappy band of misfits. And we'll see if they can keep the train rolling there. But there's a lot of upward trajectory that needs to take place. I just think Alex Orji is your guy right now until it's clear he isn't. Because I'm sorry, I don't have confidence that in the fourth quarter of a game that Davis Warren can protect the football, because I haven't seen it this year. And even when he's played before that, he's thrown some interceptions. So this is what it is right now. I mean, can't talk about the transfer portal, can't talk about the offseason anymore. This is game 5 this weekend, and they need to be better. Everyone needs to be better.